Welcome to Historical English Explorer, your daily guide to mastering English. In today's video, we will improve your English listening skills. I'll be reading 11 different stories for you, so make sure to listen attentively. Story number 1, The Golden Story of California.
Once upon a time, there was a beautiful land called California. It was on the west coast of a big country, the United States. Long ago, Native American tribes lived in California. They loved the land and took care of it. In the year 1769, explorers from a place called Spain came to California. They built missions, which were big churches along the coast. Many people came to live around these missions. Then, something exciting happened in 1848. A man found gold in California. This event was called the Gold Rush. People from all over the world came to California to find gold. They dreamed of becoming rich. Towns grew quickly because so many people came. Later, in 1850, California became a part of the United States. It was called the Golden State because of the gold rush. California grew and grew. People built farms, roads, and cities. Two big cities, Los Angeles and San Francisco, became very famous. In the 1900s, something new started in California. People began making movies in a place called Hollywood. Many movie stars lived there, and people loved watching their films. Today, California is known for its beautiful beaches, forests, and mountains. People from all around the world live and work there. It is a place of dreams, history, and beautiful sunshine. And that is the golden story of California, a land of dreams and adventure.
Story number 2, The Story of Ancient Rome.
Long ago, there was a city called Rome. Rome was a beautiful city with many buildings and busy streets. In this city, people lived, worked, and played. Rome was not always big. It started as a small town by the river Tiber. The river was very important. It gave water to the people and animals. It also made the land good for growing food. In Rome, there were many different people. There were farmers, soldiers, teachers, and builders. The farmers grew food like wheat and olives. They worked hard in the fields. The soldiers protected Rome. They were strong and brave. The teachers taught children how to read and write. They were wise and kind. The builders made buildings, roads, and bridges. They were skilled and busy. Rome was famous for its big buildings. One famous building was the Colosseum. The Colosseum was very, very big. It was where people watched games and shows. Many people came to the Colosseum to have fun. There was also a place called the Forum. The Forum was the heart of Rome. It was a busy place with markets and temples. People came to the Forum to meet, talk, and buy things. The Romans, the people of Rome, were good at making things. They made roads that went far and wide. These roads helped the soldiers to travel and protect Rome. The roads also helped traders. Traders brought things to sell in Rome. They brought spices, silk, and other nice things. The Romans also built aqueducts. Aqueducts were like bridges for water. They carried water from far away to the city. Because of aqueducts, people in Rome had fresh water to drink and use. Rome had good laws. These laws were fair and kept order. The laws helped people live together in peace. The Romans wrote their laws so everyone could know them. Many years passed, and Rome grew bigger and more powerful. It became an empire. An empire is a big land with many places in it. Rome's empire was one of the biggest ever. Rome had emperors who were like kings. The emperors ruled Rome and its empire. Some emperors were good and kind. They made Rome a better place. Some emperors were not good. They made problems for Rome. One famous emperor was Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was strong and smart. He made Rome very powerful, but he also had enemies. His enemies did not like his power. Julius Caesar's story is a big part of Rome's history. Over time, Rome faced many challenges. There were wars, famines, and diseases. But Rome was strong. It lasted a long time and became a legend. Today, Rome is still there. It is in a country called Italy. People from all over the world go to Rome. They go to see the Colosseum, the Forum, and other old places. They go to remember the great city of Rome and its long, amazing history.
Story number 3, The Journey of the United States.
Once upon a time, in a land far across the ocean, there were many people in Europe who dreamed of a new life. They wanted to explore new places and find a land where they could live freely. This is the story of how the United States of America began. Long ago, before the United States existed, Native Americans lived on the land. They had different tribes and spoke many languages. They lived with nature and had rich cultures. In the year 1492, a man named Christopher Columbus sailed across the ocean. He was looking for a new way to India, but found a new world instead. This was the beginning of a big change. More explorers came from Europe. They were from countries like Spain, France, and England. They wanted to find gold and new lands. Some came for adventure, and others came to live in peace and freedom. In 1607, the English made the first permanent colony in a place called Jamestown, Virginia. Life was hard there. The weather was different, and growing food was tough. But they did not give up. Soon, more people came, and they started new colonies. They called this new land America. They built houses, farms, and towns. They came from different places and had different beliefs, but they all wanted a better life. In America, there were 13 colonies. They were ruled by England far across the ocean, but the people in the colonies did not like being controlled. They wanted to make their own rules. In 1776, leaders from these colonies wrote a special paper. It was called the Declaration of Independence. It said that the colonies were free and not part of England anymore. This was a brave and bold step. A big war called the Revolutionary War was fought. The American people wanted to be free, and they fought hard. In the end, they won. America became an independent country. It was a new beginning. After the war, the leaders made a plan for the new country. It was called the Constitution. It had rules about how to run the country and make sure people were free and had rights. The United States grew. People moved west to find new lands. They built railroads and cities. They invented things and made discoveries. It was a time of change and progress, but not all was well. There was a big problem called slavery. Some people thought it was wrong to own other people. This disagreement led to a terrible war called the Civil War. It was a sad time, but in the end, slavery was ended. In the 1900s, the United States faced two big wars called World Wars. Many countries fought in these wars. The United States helped win these wars and became a very powerful country. Through the years, people from all over the world came to America. They brought their cultures, languages, and dreams. This mix of people made America a special place. Today, the United States is a country with 50 states. It has mountains, rivers, cities, and farms. People in America still come from many places. They all share the dream of a better life and freedom. This is the story of the United States, a land of freedom and opportunity. It's a place where dreams can come true, and that's what makes it so special.
Story number 4. The Wonders of Ancient Egypt.
Long, long ago, in a land with golden sands, there was a place called Ancient Egypt. Egypt was a special land because it had a big river called the Nile. The Nile was the heart of Egypt. It gave water for drinking and growing crops. In Egypt, there were many amazing buildings called pyramids. Pyramids were very big and tall. They were like mountains made by people. The Egyptians built the pyramids a long, long time ago. The pyramids were tombs for the pharaohs. Pharaohs were the rulers of Egypt, like kings and queens. The most famous pyramid is the Great Pyramid. It is very big and strong. It has been standing for thousands of years. People from all over the world come to see the Great Pyramid. Egyptians also built temples. Temples were places to worship gods. The Egyptians believed in many gods. These gods were very important to them. The temples were beautiful, with many statues and paintings. One famous temple is the Temple of Karnak. It is a huge temple with many statues. People visit Karnak to see its beauty and learn about the past. In ancient Egypt, people wrote on walls and paper made from a plant called papyrus. They used a writing called hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs were pictures that stood for words. Writing hieroglyphs was an important job in Egypt. The Egyptians were also good at making things. They made jewelry, pots, and clothes. They were very skilled artists and craftsmen. Farmers in Egypt worked hard. They grew wheat, fruits, and vegetables. The Nile helped the farmers. Every year, the Nile flooded and made the land good for crops. Egypt had a hot desert climate. The sun was bright and strong, but the Nile made the land green and good for farming. Egyptians also believed in life after death. They thought that after they died, they would go to another world. So they made mummies. Mummies were bodies wrapped in cloth. The Egyptians put mummies in the pyramids and temples. One famous pharaoh of Egypt was King Tutankhamun, often called King Tut. King Tut became a pharaoh when he was very young. He is famous because his tomb was full of treasures. People learned a lot about Egypt from King Tut's tomb. For many years, Egypt was a powerful and rich land. The pharaohs and people of Egypt built many wonderful things. They created a civilization that lasted thousands of years. Today, Egypt is still a country. People live, work, and play in modern Egypt, but the pyramids, temples, and the Nile are still there. They remind us of the wonderful world of ancient Egypt. People from all over the world visit Egypt. They go to see the pyramids, the temples, and the Nile. They learn about the pharaohs, the farmers, and the artists of ancient Egypt. Egypt's past is a treasure for the whole world.
Story number 5. The Story of Paris and the Eiffel Tower.
Once upon a time, there was a beautiful city named Paris. Paris is in a country called France. Paris has many buildings, streets, and parks. It is famous for its art, food, and a big tower called the Eiffel Tower. Long ago, Paris was a small town, but over many years, it grew bigger and bigger. More and more people came to live in Paris. They built houses, shops, and churches. Paris became a busy and important city. In Paris, there are many beautiful places. One of these is the River Seine. The River Seine flows through the middle of Paris. People in Paris love to walk by the river and see the boats. There are also many museums in Paris. Museums are buildings where art is kept and shown. People from all over the world come to Paris to see the art. The most famous museum in Paris is the Louvre. The Louvre has a famous painting called the Mona Lisa. Now, let's talk about the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower is a very tall tower made of iron. It looks like a giant piece of lace made of metal. The Eiffel Tower was built a long time ago in 1889. It was built for a big event called the World Fair. The World Fair was a big show. Countries from all over the world came to show their new ideas and things they made. The Eiffel Tower was the entrance to the World Fair. When the Eiffel Tower was first built, some people did not like it. They thought it was too big and strange, but soon people began to love the Eiffel Tower. They thought it was beautiful and amazing. The Eiffel Tower is very tall. It was the tallest building in the world when it was built. People can go up the Eiffel Tower. They can take an elevator or climb the stairs. From the top of the Eiffel Tower, you can see all of Paris. It is a wonderful view. At night, the Eiffel Tower is lit up with lights. It shines and sparkles. It looks like a tower of stars. The light from the Eiffel Tower can be seen from far away. Today, the Eiffel Tower is a symbol of Paris. A symbol is something that stands for an idea. The Eiffel Tower stands for the beauty and creativity of Paris. People in Paris are proud of the Eiffel Tower. They take care of it and show it to visitors. Every year, millions of people come to see the Eiffel Tower. They take pictures and remember their visit to Paris. Paris, with its beautiful Eiffel Tower, is a city of dreams. It is a place where people enjoy art, food, and the beauty of life. The Eiffel Tower reminds us that new things can become special and loved. And that is the story of Paris and the Eiffel Tower, a city and a tower that have been part of many stories and dreams. They show us how beautiful and wonderful our world can be.
Story number 6, The Great Wall of China, a story of strength and unity.
Long ago in ancient China, there was a huge wall called the Great Wall. The Great Wall was very long and went up and down over mountains and across lands. It was built to protect the people of China. The story of the Great Wall starts with many walls. These walls were built by different kingdoms in China. They were built to keep out enemies. Enemies are people who might cause harm. The walls were made of stone, brick, and wood. One day, a powerful emperor named Qin Shi Huang came. He was the first emperor of China. Emperor Qin Shi Huang had a big idea. He wanted to join the walls together. He thought this would make China stronger. So the building of the Great Wall began. Many people worked on the Great Wall. There were soldiers, farmers, and even prisoners. They worked very hard. Building the wall was tough. They carried heavy stones and bricks. They worked in the hot sun and cold winds. The wall got longer and longer. It stretched over mountains and across the land. The Great Wall was not only tall but also strong. It had watchtowers. Watchtowers are tall buildings where soldiers could look out and see far away. The soldiers on the watchtowers kept watch for enemies. People in China worked on the Great Wall for many years. Different emperors kept adding to the wall. The wall went through many changes. Some parts of the wall were rebuilt. New parts were added. The Great Wall became very long. It was like a giant dragon across China. The Great Wall was not just for keeping out enemies, it was also used for sending messages. Soldiers would use smoke signals. Smoke signals are a way to send messages using smoke. If enemies were near, the soldiers would make smoke. This smoke would warn the other soldiers. The Great Wall also helped in trade. Trade is buying and selling things. The wall was like a road for traders. Traders came from far away with things to sell. They brought silk, spices, and jewels. The Great Wall became a place for people to meet and trade. As time passed, the Great Wall became a symbol. A symbol is something that stands for an idea. The Great Wall became a symbol of China's strength and unity. It showed how people can do great things when they work together. Today, the Great Wall of China is very famous. Many people from all over the world come to see it. The wall is very old and parts of it are broken, but it still stands tall and strong. It tells the story of China's past. The Great Wall is a wonder. It shows the hard work and smart thinking of the people who built it. It reminds us that when people work together, they can make amazing things. The Great Wall of China is not just a wall. It is a story of strength, unity, and the spirit of the Chinese people.
Story number 7. The Brave Vikings, Explorers of the Seas.
A long time ago, there were people called Vikings. The Vikings lived in a place called Scandinavia. This place is now known as Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. The Vikings were famous for being strong, brave, and great sailors. The Vikings lived in small villages. They built their homes from wood and had farms with animals. They grew vegetables and raised sheep. The Vikings were good farmers, but they were even better sailors. They built big boats called longships. These longships were long and fast. They could sail in deep oceans and shallow rivers. The Vikings used these longships to travel very far. They went on adventures across the seas. The Vikings were explorers. Explorers are people who travel to find new places. The Vikings explored many places. They went to lands that were far away. They sailed to places like Britain, France, and even as far as America. They were some of the first people to visit these lands. On their journeys, the Vikings faced many challenges. The oceans were sometimes dangerous with big waves and strong winds, but the Vikings were brave. They kept sailing and exploring. The Vikings were also traders. Traders are people who buy and sell things. They traded things like fur, wool, and silver. They met other people on their travels and traded with them. This is how the Vikings got things they could not find in Scandinavia. Sometimes the Vikings were warriors. Warriors are people who fight. They fought to protect their lands. The Vikings were known to be strong fighters. They wore helmets and carried shields. The Vikings believed in many gods. They had stories about gods like Odin, Thor, and Freya. These stories were called myths. Myths are stories about gods and heroes. The Vikings loved to tell these myths. The Vikings also had special celebrations. They had feasts with food, music, and dancing. They celebrated their gods, their victories, and the changing of the seasons. These feasts were important for Viking culture. Over time, the Vikings settled in the new lands they explored. They became part of the history of these places. The Vikings left a big mark on the world. They showed that being brave and adventurous is important. Today, we remember the Vikings for their adventures and discoveries. They teach us about exploring new places and learning new things. The story of the Vikings is a story of bravery, exploration, and the spirit of adventure. And that's the story of the Vikings. Brave explorers of the seas who sailed across the world. They were farmers, traders, warriors, and storytellers. The Vikings were an important part of history, and their story is still told today.
Story number 8. The Story of the Titanic.
Long ago, there was a big ship named the Titanic. The Titanic was very large and beautiful. It was called the unsinkable ship. The Titanic was like a giant hotel on the sea. It had many rooms, a dining hall, and even a swimming pool. The Titanic started its first trip in 1912. It sailed from England to New York City in the United States. Many people were excited about this trip. Some people on the Titanic were rich and famous. Others were not rich, but they dreamed of a better life in America. On the Titanic, there were many rooms. The rich people had big, fancy rooms. These rooms were very pretty. The people who were not rich had smaller rooms. But everyone on the Titanic was happy. They were all on a great adventure. The Titanic sailed on the ocean. The ocean was very big and deep. The ship moved through the water. It was strong and fast. People on the ship enjoyed their time. They ate good food and talked with each other. Children played, and everyone was having a good time. But then something bad happened. The Titanic hit something. It was an iceberg. An iceberg is a very large piece of ice in the ocean. When the Titanic hit the iceberg, it made a big hole in the ship. Water started to come into the Titanic. The ship began to sink. This means the ship was going down into the water. People on the Titanic were scared. They needed to leave the ship. There were not enough boats for everyone. The boats on the Titanic were called lifeboats. Lifeboats are small boats used in emergencies. People got into the lifeboats. But many people were still on the Titanic. The Titanic sank into the ocean. It was a very sad day. Many people did not survive. Survive means to stay alive. The sinking of the Titanic was a big disaster. A disaster is something very bad that happens. After the Titanic sank, people remembered it. They told the story of the Titanic. They talked about the beautiful ship, the happy people, and the sad sinking. The story of the Titanic teaches us to be careful and always be prepared for emergencies. Today, the story of the Titanic is still told. People make movies and write books about it. The Titanic lies deep in the ocean. It reminds us of the people who were on the ship. The story of the Titanic is a story of a great ship, a sad night, and the importance of being safe. And that is the story of the Titanic. It was a big, beautiful ship that had a sad ending, but the Titanic will always be remembered. It's a part of history.
Story number 9. The Wonders of Ancient Greece.
Long ago, there was a place called Ancient Greece. Ancient Greece was a beautiful land with mountains, seas, and sunny weather. In ancient Greece, there were many city-states. A city-state is like a small country. One famous city-state was Athens. Athens was known for its great buildings and smart people. Another was Sparta, known for its strong warriors. People in ancient Greece spoke the Greek language. In ancient Greece, people loved stories. They told stories about gods and heroes. These stories are called myths. Myths are like fairy tales. One famous myth is about Hercules, a strong hero. Another is about Zeus, the king of the gods. The Greeks were very smart. They started the first democracy. Democracy is when people choose their leaders. In Athens, people met to talk about their city and make decisions. This was new in the world. Ancient Greeks loved art and learning. They built big temples for their gods. A famous temple in Athens is called the Parthenon. The Parthenon is on a hill and looks over the city. It is very old and beautiful. The Greeks were also good at science and math. Famous Greek scientists like Archimedes and Pythagoras made many discoveries. They taught us about numbers and how things work. People in ancient Greece liked sports too. They started the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games were sports contests to honor the gods. Athletes came from all over Greece to compete. Ancient Greeks liked to have big parties called festivals. At festivals, people ate, sang, danced, and watched plays. Greek plays were like movies today. Some were funny and some were serious. The Greeks were sailors and traders. They sailed across the sea to trade with other lands. They traded things like olive oil, wine, and pottery. Greek pottery was very pretty and special. In time, the city-state of Athens fought with the city-state of Sparta. This fight was called the Peloponnesian War. It lasted many years. It was a hard time for ancient Greece, but the ideas of ancient Greece did not die. They spread to other places. Today, we remember ancient Greece for its ideas, art, and stories. Many things we have today, like democracy, science, and the Olympics, started in ancient Greece. Ancient Greece was a wonderful place. It was full of smart people and beautiful things. The story of ancient Greece teaches us about the past and helps us understand the world today. And that's the story of ancient Greece. A land of bright skies, smart people, and amazing ideas. Ancient Greece may be gone, but its stories and ideas live on.
Story number 10. The Mystery of the Maya Civilization.
Long ago, in the lands of Central America, there was a great civilization called the Maya. The Maya lived in what is now Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and parts of Honduras and El Salvador. Their civilization was one of the most advanced of its time. The Maya built wonderful cities in the jungle. These cities had big pyramids, beautiful temples, and grand palaces. The pyramids were tall and steep. People could see them from far away. The temples were for worshiping the gods. The palaces were homes for the Maya kings and queens. The Maya were very smart. They had their own writing system called hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics are like pictures that mean words. The Maya wrote on walls, in books, and on pottery. They wrote about their history, their gods, and their daily life. One amazing thing about the Maya was their knowledge of the stars. They watched the sky and learned about the stars and planets. They even had their own calendar. The Maya calendar was very accurate. It helped them know when to plant crops and when to have festivals. The Maya were good at farming. They grew corn, beans, squash, and cacao. Cacao is the plant used to make chocolate. The Maya loved chocolate. They made a special chocolate drink that was very important in their culture. The Maya also loved art. They made beautiful pottery, jewelry, and sculptures. Their art had bright colors and detailed designs. The Maya artists were very skilled. In their cities, the Maya had big markets. People came to the markets to buy and sell things. They traded food, tools, cloth, and beautiful feathers. The markets were busy and colorful places. The Maya played a game with a rubber ball. The game was like soccer and basketball. They played it in a court in their cities. The game was important to the Maya. It was part of their religion and culture. But something mysterious happened to the Maya. Their great civilization declined. This means it became weaker. Many of their cities were left empty. The jungle grew over them. Scientists and historians are still trying to understand why. Today, the Maya are remembered for their amazing achievements. People all over the world study the Maya. They visit the ruins of their cities in the jungle. These ruins are like a window to the past. The story of the Maya civilization is a story of mystery, intelligence, and beauty. It shows us how advanced ancient people were. The Maya teach us about the stars, art, and the importance of nature. And that's the story of the Maya, a great civilization that lived long ago. Their pyramids, art, and knowledge are still admired today. The Maya civilization will always be remembered as one of the wonders of the ancient world.
Story number 11. The Time of Rebirth, the Renaissance Period.
A long time ago, there was a special period in history called the Renaissance. The Renaissance started around the 14th century and lasted until the 17th century. It began in a place called Italy and spread to other parts of Europe. The word Renaissance means rebirth. It was a time when art, science, and ideas grew like never before. During the Renaissance, people started to think differently. Before this time, life was hard for many people. They did not ask many questions. But in the Renaissance, people began to explore, ask, and learn. They became curious about the world, nature, and humans. One of the best things about the Renaissance was the art. Artists started to create paintings and sculptures that looked real and beautiful. They used bright colors and paid attention to light and shadow. Famous artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo lived during this time. Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa, a very famous painting. Michelangelo painted the ceiling of a big church called the Sistine Chapel. These artists helped make the Renaissance a great time for art. The Renaissance was also a time for new ideas in science. Before the Renaissance, people believed what old books said without asking if it was true. But Renaissance scientists started to observe the world and experiment. They learned about the human body, the stars, and how things move. A famous scientist from this time was Galileo. He used a telescope to look at the stars and planets. People in the Renaissance loved to learn. They read books about different subjects. They studied languages, history, and philosophy. Philosophy is thinking about life and what it means. The Renaissance was a time when education became important for more people. In the Renaissance, there was also new music. Composers created music that was different and exciting. They wrote music for orchestras and operas. An orchestra is a large group of musicians with many kinds of instruments. Opera is a kind of play where the story is sung with music. Renaissance music was beautiful and is still loved today. The Renaissance changed how buildings were designed. Architects, people who design buildings, started to make buildings that were balanced and elegant. They used ideas from ancient Greece and Rome. The buildings from the Renaissance are still admired for their beauty. The Renaissance was important for exploring the world. Explorers from Europe traveled to faraway places. They sailed across oceans and discovered new lands. These explorers brought back new knowledge and treasures. This time of change, the Renaissance, was like a new beginning for Europe. It helped people see the world in a new way. It was a time of creativity, learning, and discovery. The Renaissance teaches us that asking questions and exploring can lead to wonderful things. It was a time when people believed that learning and creating could make the world better. And that is the story of the Renaissance. It was a time of rebirth for art, science, and ideas. The Renaissance showed us the power of curiosity and imagination.